Welcome back to Cooking with Tris, real food for real people. Today, in the last of our videos on meat, we are cooking my absolute favourite, Chinese style crispy belly pork. Now, I love this dish so much so that any time that I'm back home in either Birmingham or London, I've got to make a beeline to Chinatown and to one of my favourite restaurants there to eat this dish. And who can blame me? It is tender, melt in the mouth pork belly that's packed full of flavours, topped with delightfully crispy skin that is all at once crunchy and at other times just that little bit chewy. It's delightful. It's served with just plain boiled rice and then on the side either pak choy or Chinese cabbage, and then just finished off with a sauce made of the meat juices. Unfortunately, this is a dish that doesn't often find its way onto takeaway menus, which I think is a real shame, and I think places are missing out not doing that. So I have started making it for myself here at home. I have to say that what I make possibly isn't as authentic as the type you get in a restaurant, or it may taste slightly different, but believe me, I can guarantee that this tastes really, really good. It's delicious. It's really easy to make. There's only 3 ingredients, so it's a piece of cake, really easily done. And I think if you haven't tried it before, I think you're going to absolutely love it. So what have we got? How do we make it? I've got our pork belly here. I've got 400 grams. We're serving 2 people, so I work it out about 200 grams of pork for each person. If you are serving more, just add on an extra 200 grams per person. I've asked the guy behind the meat counter just to take out any leftover little bones there, because we don't want any sort of hidden surprises when we're eating it. I've got some just normal long grain rice here, and then I've got some Chinese cabbage. As I said before, you could go for pak choy, but I saw they had Chinese cabbage today, so I went for that. So that's it, just 3 ingredients here. What we do have to do though, is because we're going to slow cook the pork, I want to marinate it in different things just overnight, just to give it a real boost of flavour. Marinating it overnight allows the meat to really absorb all these flavours that I'm going to add. And what are those flavours? Well, I've got 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. I've got 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. I've got about 50 millilitres of just water. I've got 1 teaspoon of brown sugar, then 2 teaspoons full of 5 spice powder, and then just 1 finely chopped clove of garlic. And basically all we do, we take a dish that the pork will be able to sit into, and we just pour all these ingredients in like so, like this. Just drop it in. Like that. Give this a bit of a stir around, just so it all mixes together. And then you just grab the pork and just rest it in, just like that. And so there it is. All we're going to do now, we'll just cover it over with some cling film, put that in the fridge overnight, and then we'll get cooking tomorrow. Just one thing that I will do, just to mention, we don't want to get any of this marinade on the skin really, because we want to keep that nice and crispy. So just with that in mind, I'm just going to put a couple of twists of salt over the top of the skin, and that's just going to help when we do get round to cooking it to crisp up that skin. And that's it. So I'm just going to cover this over, put it in the fridge, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day and I've just got the pork out of the fridge where it's been marinating for the last 24 hours. And I've got to say, I am really happy with that. The marinade has really done its job and the meat's really absorbed it. So it's looking great. What we're going to do now is just cover it in tin foil and we're going to put it in the oven and we're going to cook it low and slow for about 3 hours. So that meat is going to be super tender. So I'm just going to get the pork out of the marinade here and put it on some tin foil. Now, because we want the skin to really crisp up, what I'm going to do, we're going to really want to protect that as much as we can. So I've got this extra piece of tin foil. I'm literally just going to put this as a bit of added protection, almost, just round the skin. So what this is going to do, as I say, it's just going to, I've done it before for some reason, and it just, yeah, keeps that skin nice and dry almost, and it's just going to mean it's going to crisp up really well. And then for the rest of this, cover it over tin foil, just fold it up, back on itself like this, into a little package. So that is just going to keep all the juices, all that moisture inside. So as I say, it's going to be super tender. Just whack it in the tray there. That's ready to go. We are not going to waste this marinade. What we're going to do is just add it into a saucepan and we're going to use that later to be part of the sauce that we're going to serve this with. So let's get this over and into that oven. Okay, so the pork is ready to go in the oven. I've got the oven set at 150 degrees and I'm going to put the pork in on the middle shelf, like so. We're going to cook it for about 2.5 to 3 hours, but because it's wrapped up in that tin foil, it's not really going to matter. It'll sit there quite happily, almost cook for the longer the better, really. It's just going to make it more tender. So I'm happy with that. We'll be back in about 3 hours. Okay, so it's about 20 minutes before the meat needs to come out and I've been preparing. I've got my cabbage all chopped up. I've just basically cut the leaves in two, so that's ready to go. I've got a wok ready that we're going to cook the cabbage in. I've got my rice on, boiling away, and then I've got some 2 teaspoons full of corn flour, which I'm going to mix with a bit of water, which is going to help to thicken up our sauce. And then finally, I've just got a little bowl, which I'm going to use to pour all the juices from the meat into. So we'll be back in about 20 minutes. My rice will be done then, and we'll get that meat out. Okay, so the meat is done. It's been in the oven now for about 3 hours. And what I'm going to do now, just take it out, get rid of this dish, and I'm just going to pour off the juices here. So I'm just going to make a little hole in here, and in my bowl, I'm just going to pour all the juices away there. Like so. You can just about see them in there. So pour those off. They're going to be great in our sauce that we're going to make in a few minutes. I'm just going to let the pork just rest here for a little while, just to firm up and different things. By that point, the rice should be nice and cooked and we'll be ready to go with everything else. Okay, so it's about 10 minutes later now. The meat is well rested. I've cooked my rice and I've just got it on a hob here, just keeping warm. And now I've just put our marinade over a sort of medium heat to start to warm that up in preparation for making the sauce. Okay, let's get back to the meat. I am so excited. It's just like Christmas or something. I've got an amazing package here to unpack. So let's take a look at it. Pull this off. And wow, I'm really happy with that. Let's just take it out. It's incredibly tender and the skin has stayed really nice and dry. Once that goes in the grill, that's really going to crisp up. Just going to pour off last bit of juices in here. And what we're going to do is take a knife and just score along the skin here. Just cut into it where we will want to cut it for each individual piece. So these are going to be bite-sized chunks. By doing it now, it just makes it a lot easier. Then once it's all crisped up, it's just going to crack. So this, it's nice, soft and tender now. Like so. And that's ready to go. Now, let's make that sauce and get the Chinese cabbage on. So now we're going to make the cabbage and the sauce. Now, what we're going to do is I've got the juices here, as you can see. I don't know if you can quite see, but there's a bit of a layer of fat there. So what I'm going to do first of all is just put a couple of teaspoons of this fat into my wok. Yeah, a few teaspoons like this. Like so. Just going to turn that up to a high heat. And then I'm just going to skim off the rest of this fat, just get rid of that. And then we're going to put these juices directly into our pan here with the old marinating to create that sauce. So I'll do that. I'll be back in 2 seconds. So I've got rid of most of the fat off there. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit left over, it'll be fine. Just add some more flavour. We're just going to put this straight in with our marinade and just let that continue to simmer away. And then we've got our fat in here. It's sort of nice and hot. So I'm just going to put the cabbage directly in there. Just give it a bit of a stir around, move it around, get a bit of that oil on there. And then just going to grab, I'd say about 50 ml of water, which we're going to pour over the top, and it's kind of going to steam away. So just pour the water on top like so. And then, to really let that steam do its work, I'm just going to cover the whole thing with a plate. I'm going to keep this fairly high. That cabbage is really going to sort of wilt down and it's going to be absolutely perfect. Okay, now to the sauce. This has been simmering away. You know, the meat juices and the marinade there, and it's looking really good. It's smelling really good. Just what it needs is slightly thickening up, and that's why we go back to our corn flour here. So I'm just going to add some water to this, and then we're going to put it, give it a bit of a stir, and then we're just going to add this directly to our sauce. Give that a stir around. We're just going to let that thicken up. And what we're actually going to do is add the sauce to the cabbage here. We're going to take the cabbage out and then we're going to pour the sauce over our meat and our rice. The reason I add it to the cabbage is because that cabbage juice or that cabbage sort of water is really going to add an extra dimension of flavour to the sauce we're making here. So it's really starting to thicken up. The corn flour is doing its work, and once the corn flour has sort of worked, I'm just going to take it off the heat, or turn the heat off. So yeah, so that is looking good. It's really thick, it's almost like a thick barbecue kind of sauce now. And as you can hear, the cabbage is really starting to bubble away there, which is great. Okay, so I'm just going to check the sauce, see if it needs any kind of flavour added. Wow, that is really good. I'm just going to add some salt, just one twist, and a little bit of pepper. Check it again. Spot on. So we're just going to turn that off. I'm going to give this a couple more minutes, but in the meantime, let's do something with that meat. Back to the meat. What we're going to do, really simple, we're just going to put this under a really hot grill. Just going to put it in a frying pan. It's probably the best thing to do, but put it in the middle. I've got the grill on to like maximum. The shelf is a little bit down, so a couple of rungs down, so it's not directly under the heat. It's a bit away from it, which is going to be perfect. So put this under the grill, let that skin crisp up, and then we're ready to go. We're just about to put this under the grill. I forgot to say, before we do that, we're just going to put a little bit of oil over the top of the skin and then a twist of salt. Adding our oil, it's not going to burn so much. And by adding a little bit of salt, it's just going to help it crisp up. Like so. There you go. And that's just going to go straight into the grill. And with luck, it's going to really crisp up. And here you go. It's really starting to do its thing. It's starting to crisp, bubble, snap. It's looking amazing. If you need to, do feel free to turn things around to make sure that it's evenly cooked on top. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way that's going. Okay, the pork's doing its thing under there, so I'm really happy with that. It's still looking good. It's been about 10 minutes, so the cabbage is really wilted down. It's looking great. So I'm just basically going to get this sauce and put it directly on top of this. Just for the last few minutes. Put this back on. And that will be ready to go when we're ready to serve. Okay, so we are done. This has been under the grill for about 10 minutes now, and it is absolutely fantastic. Really crispy on top. I'm really happy with that. And basically, what we're going to do is take it out of the pan, if I can. So tender. And then I'm going to chop it up. The cabbage, Chinese cabbage, is all good to go. My rice is perfectly cooked. So we are just going to start chopping up this amazing meat, and it's going to be ready to serve. I can't wait. And here you have it. Incredible Chinese style crispy belly pork. Delightful. The meat is so tender and beautiful. The skin really crackly, crunchy, bit chewy. It's amazing. The cabbage, let's just have a bit of this. Excellent as well, but the real star of the show is the meat. Do give it a go, I'm sure you'll love it. And I'll see you again soon for more Cooking with Tris. Real food for real people. Take care.